Alrighty, it's been a while. This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario. OakRidgeFord.com. Ford employee pricing is going on for the month of September. You can pay what I pay on just about any 2024 model line. Oak Ridge Ford is the place where you're going to get your next vehicle, and I'm going to be the guy who ushers it through for you. What is up? It is September 8, 2024. Season 7 of the Leafs Convo is on. Norm in London, Mike in Buffalo. Mr. A, I hope you had a great summer. Good to see you.
Busy, and my writing hockey never stops even in August. So, yeah, I'm ready to go because there's a lot more stuff to talk about.
For sure, training camp in the next couple of weeks. You got the rookies doing their thing. I think we start the season at close to mid-October. Really exciting stuff, but there's a lot to unpack. I figured we could start from the top, Mike. Let's talk about Brad Treliving and what he did to modify and augment, potentially improve the team during the offseason, and the guy he hired, Craig Berube. So the general manager goes out and gets Chris Tanev, Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Who else do we have in there? Anthony Stolarz, re-signed Max Domi.
Right.
I suppose just looking at this team the way it is right now, forget about the Robertson situation where Marner may fit in. Do you think the team that we are going to be following in the next month and then several months to follow will be just as good or better than the team that was shaking hands with the Bruins in early May?
I think they're a playoff team, but there are a lot of sort of areas of concern, not because the player isn't good, but because of a one thing or another, whether contractual or injury, tendency.
Right.
Now, I look at what Treliving did. He extended Joseph Woll on a reasonable deal for 3 years at a little under $4 million a year. That's pretty much boilerplate for a starting goaltender. But the big question is whether Joseph Woll can stay healthy. If he stays healthy, then the Leafs have themselves a pretty good number one. Now, I personally, and have nothing against the guy because the guy is apparently a good guy, but I didn't like the Anthony Stolarz signing. I think they needed to get somebody who was more capable of being a 1B. Stolarz has never played more than 27 games in an NHL season, and last year he put up gaudy stats, but that was with the Stanley Cup champions and their excellent defense.
Right.
So I'm questioning, no, obviously Berube is going to want this team to play better defensively, and they haven't been terrible defensively, but I'm not a big Stolarz backer. I think they need, and if Joseph Woll gets hurt, then Stolarz pencils in as the number one for however long he's out, and then you're probably looking at Matt Murray, who they re-signed as the Martin Jones this year, or Dennis Hildeby. So it really sort of gets very questionable if Joseph Woll can't stay healthy, and we don't know if he can stay healthy. That's one of the biggest questions for this team this year.
OG's Converts, welcome back. Season 7 of the Leafs Convo is underway. Gregory Seaborn's in the chat. Uncle Teddy's there. Mike's there. Hurt Locker, I think Veets. Thanks for being with us. It's been some time, but we're really excited about the content we're set to produce throughout the next few weeks and then the months ahead as we follow our beloved Toronto Maple Leafs. Brad Treliving signs some guys, brings in a new head coach, but there are a few things that are unsettled. The Nick Robertson situation. I mean, imagine this becoming a minor fiasco surrounding a player who really hasn't proven his worth yet, and Brad Treliving having to do a whole bunch of other things that are more important, but dealing with this nagging issue. And then Mitch Marner still on the team. There was expectation by many after the playoffs commenced for the Maple Leafs that, the two companies would part ways due to the fact that, we were just kind of sick and tired of Mitch Marner, but that really didn't come to fruition. And from what I'm reading, Mitch has rededicated himself to being prepared to, have another fantastic regular season. So that's something that Brad Treliving has his eye on, no doubt.
Well, okay, let's go point by point and position by position. I already talked about the goaltending. So they add Tanev, which we talked about ad nauseum last year. And he's the type of defenseman that they really needed, a stay-at-home guy. I think he pencils in on the top pairing with Morgan Rielly. He allows Rielly to be more offensive and He's more of a stay-at-home guy, blocks a lot of shots, very positional, very smart. They were wise to get him on the extended deal to lower the AAV. Now, do I think he's going to play out the full 6 years? No. He'll probably play 3 or 4 years. He's 34 years old, I believe. So, it's one of these deals where they sort of manipulate the cap and they manipulate and it's front loaded. So I think, but I like the Oliver Ekman-Larsson signing because he was once a top defenseman. He's not that defenseman anymore, but he's still pretty good, and he played pretty well for not for Vancouver, but for Florida in their Cup win. And he's, I think, 32. He's still got something, and he's not being paid a ton. So they definitely added to the strength of their blue line. They re-signed Timothy Liljegren on a 2-year deal. I'm not sure about Liljegren in terms. There's been some talk, and it'll be interesting to see at camp about whether Topi Niemela challenges for a job. If that's the case, then Liljegren could be trade bait because he's a right shot defenseman. So that's something that'll pan out. Up front, they lose Bertuzzi, which they were in on it, but he got offered more money from Chicago. The left side up front is the big area of question, and that sort of centers on what we talked about with Robertson.
Yeah.
Robertson's a restricted free agent. He can be offer sheeted, but he likely wouldn't be. He has made it clear to the Leafs, at least back in July, that he would prefer to move on. But the Leafs, I think it's two-pronged. It's if they try to trade him, they're not going to get anything for him because he's not established. And they have a hole on the left side after Bertuzzi leaves. Now, Matthew Nyes is probably going to slot in as a top line winger with Matthews. But you got a second line left wing. And Robertson, with everything except the way he plays in his own zone, is a perfect fit. He would be a good fit with Tavares and Marner or Tavares and Nylander as a sniper. He can score. But defensively, he's not a guy who in the past has really accounted himself well.
Right.
Now he doesn't have many options. He can accept the qualifying offer or, accept a 1-year offer. Right. But right now it's like, it's either that or you sit and rot, and it makes no sense for him to sit and rot.
And this all relates back to Brad Treliving being the guy, the puppet master, right? He's trying to improve the team. And by holding the line with Nick Robertson, he's trying to improve the team in the way he wants to because the team holds control. Yes.
And I think you look at this team and the way it's constructed and the way, what Craig Berube wants out of a team, which is physicality and accountability.
Right.
I think they improved that a little bit with, somebody like a Tanev, who's not an overly physical guy, but he's an accountable, defensively responsible player. But they don't have a lot of physical guys. This is not the St. Louis Blues who had Sammy Blais and this Robert Bertuzzo and guys physically running around. I mean, right now this team has one really physical guy up front, and that's Ryan Reeves, who, if they have any good sense, will be in the press box most of the time.
Hey, Mike, Mr. P. Neal Bacon, I think the team is 10 times better than last year on paper.
Okay, first of all, I love P. Neal Bacon. I have some in my refrigerator that I'm going to fry up in a little bit. So thank you very much for that reminder. I'll just say this. I don't think they're 10 times better. I think they're slightly better. I think a lot of teams in the Atlantic took a step back. Tampa Bay losing Stamkos is a big loss. Now they added Gensel, but I don't think they'll be the same team without Stamkos. Florida lost a lot of players. Couple to Toronto, but other teams as well. They're a good team. They're a playoff team, but they're, I don't know about, them being better than they were last year. Boston got better because they added Lindholm and Zadorov, but all the other teams, I mean, Buffalo thinks they got better, but they bought out Jeff Skinner and they couldn't score last year. So I want to see how they replace that. And Detroit and Ottawa and Montreal. I mean, so.
And this is all encouraging for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah. Toronto getting slightly better means I think they should be a top 3. But again, the big question is the goaltending. But I think Treliving did a pretty good job addressing the areas of need without really losing anything. I mean, I like Bertuzzi, but it was a half a season for him, and he re-signed Domi. But the big thing in the offseason that didn't get accomplished was Mitch Marner, and that really wasn't up to them because Mitch Marner has the no move clause. And we've already heard, Mitch Marner has been working out with Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon, and he's getting in shape, and that's all fine and good. It's like, okay, the problem is we won't know about what Mitch Marner has done to improve what he can do until the playoffs, and then it's too late. Then the trade deadline is passed. He's not going to waive his no move clause, and if he actually has a good playoff, he could walk away for nothing. Or if they do the same thing as they did with William Nylander, they evaluate his improvement on a half a season, and they sign him for $12 million or whatever it is, and then we don't know if this core group will do anything different. It's wash, rinse, repeat all over again, and I hate that because honestly, you don't do the same thing over and over and have a different result.
Well, this is his second full season. And so far, Brad Treliving has passed the test. When it's all said and done, whether it's in a couple of years or 10, 15 years, with cups in the bank, Brad Treliving's legacy as general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs can't be tied to what happens with Mitch Marner. I mean, it'll be a part of it, but he can't be the sole focus of how we would judge this guy.
Yeah, he inherited it. That's a very valid point. But the thing is, when you inherit something, I mean, okay, it wasn't fair for us to sort of judge Treliving on his general managership. When he was hired in, I think it was mid-May, and July 1st, decisions had to be made on Nylander, on Matthews, on Marner, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, Marner's no move clause kicked in last July 1st, not 24, but 23. Now you're in a situation where you may have liked to want to move Marner, but he doesn't want to move. And you may like the fact that you'll open up almost $10 million in cap space if you just let him walk after the year. But what are you going to replace him with? And what you replace him with, will that make the team better or not? So, I mean, there are a lot of questions that will be answered over the next 6 or 7 months, going through the season, going into the playoffs, and then we'll know.
Right. Spike 11 here in the chat. Spike, of course, I guess let's make him an OG because he's been around for so long. Treliving hasn't made one impactful trade yet, but maybe the impact is on the trade he hasn't made and the fact that he hasn't made any trades that could potentially blow up in his face, at least to this point.
Well, okay, I will agree with Spike in the sense that, like, the deals that he made at the deadline last year were not piddly, but I mean, were targeted. I mean, if they had kept Joel Edmondson, I liked Joel Edmondson as an addition. I mean, they weren't going to give him 4 years like LA did, so I don't blame him for signing there, and I don't blame them for trying to match that, and they went with Ekman Larsson instead. But he's made tweaking moves. That's all he's really done. Now,
but what was the glaring move that he didn't make? The one that was staring him right in the face that everybody figured would be obvious that would take this team to another level, and he didn't pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what options he had out there. I mean, you could say that they could have traded for a big time winger, or but remember, this organization has been bled of assets and draft capital by Kyle Dubas. And in part by Treliving. I mean, remember what I said before the deadline. I didn't agree with them trading draft picks for short-term guys because this team was not good enough to win the Stanley Cup. Now, could they have won a round or two? They went to Game 7 in overtime against Boston. Yeah, but they weren't going to beat Florida. No way was that team as currently constructed going to beat Florida, especially after Joseph Wall got hurt in Game 6.
Yeah, you don't make those kinds of moves, mortgaging the future,
correct,
just to potentially eke into the second round because you went 7 games with the Tampa Bay Lightning. You do that when you've been knocking at the door of the conference finals for a couple of years, and you realize the shelf life or the expiry dates or the contract dates on the guys who are making the big difference are coming due. And that's when you push forward and you go all in. The Leafs were never in that position. So could we could we implicate Kyle Dubas in being sitting on his hands and not doing enough? You could make that argument, but I think he did what he could with what he had and where he projected this team to be. Treliving really hasn't had a team under his wing that he could say really does deserve that much augmentation to try to go all the way, because they really just didn't prove they were capable of getting there.
Well, you could say Dubas shot his bolt in 23 when he traded for Ryan O'Reilly and he traded for Luke Shen and Jake McCabe, and then they added 6 or 7 pieces, but he did it at the cost of significant draft capital over the next couple of years.
And the Leafs weren't even really ready looking back. They really weren't even ready to take that.
I mean, if you, I mean, I know people don't want to be concerned with the draft, but part of in terms of draft picks available is factors in the deadline, and right now the Leafs I believe have 3 picks. They moved a second round. They moved down in the first round to get an extra second round pick at the draft. And then they traded that second round pick to get a second round pick next year because they had no picks next year. So, I mean, you need draft capital to be able to make these sort of tweaking moves. And they don't have any draft capital next year, definitely. In the following year, they have less. So
is that what teams are looking for now? They're looking for draft capital, and they're willing to expend a player on the roster who might or might not make an impact to get, more capability to build their organizations in the future. With draft capital.
Let's just say this. I think the possibility, if the Leafs do trade Robertson and it ends up being a lengthy holdout or something like that, if they get themselves a second or a third round pick, then they'll probably make the deal because they have, like I said, they have no draft picks.
Could they do that for him right now?
I think if they got a second round pick, I think they would. Yeah.
But do you think Nick Robertson is worth that right now? Do you think other teams would value him that way and are just basically biding time before they make that offer to the Leafs?
If I was the right team looking for offense and I could plug him in with a center who is defensively responsible, like and I'm just spitballing here, like a team like Nashville, if like you put him with Ryan O'Reilly, who's a good playmaker, and I would do that deal in a second. I think Nick Robertson scored 55. I think it was 55 goals in junior. And when he has been healthy, and he was last year, in I think 12 minutes, 13 minutes of ice time, he scored 14 goals in 56 games. The guy can score. It's their problem is I think they want him to be a more well-rounded player, and he may just be a sniper. And at some points you have to accept what a player is. Now, so I've seen the name mentioned in the chat of Easton Cowan. That is a big dilemma for the Leafs, and that'll be something that we will see play out over training camp, because Easton Cowan is a right winger. He played right wing in London, but he's a left shot, so he could play the left side.
Yeah.
So if Robertson holds out and Easton Cowan impresses at training camp, and he had the year for the ages in the OHL last year, winning the MVP, the playoff MVP, being on the World Junior for Team Canada, he could steal that job. That's why Robertson needs to come in.
But do you think this is the reason why Pat Brisson and Nick Robertson are holding the line here and staying away from the Maple Leafs because they feel it's going to be Easton Cowan's job to lose? Are they forecasting that?
No, I think they think that he is going to not get the ice time that he needs and an opportunity in Toronto after he has not gotten the ice time he needs and the opportunity in Toronto the last few years. Now, I think it'll be different under Berube, but if they want him to be a player that he can't be, meaning a two-way player, and I'm not saying he's going to be a David Camp or something like that. I'm just saying you need to be more responsible defensively. You need to be stronger on the puck. You need, I don't want him to go in the corners because every time he goes in the corners, he gets hurt. But, I mean, you just need to play a better two-way game. You can't be a liability. You got to be positional.
Right. Yeah.
And if he can't do that, then they're saying, okay, well, he's got to go someplace like Utah or some other place where he can get ice time, score goals, and that will make him money down the road.
We know the Leafs hold the leverage, but this isn't, nor should it morph into a major dilemma. So, the Leafs can deal with other things. However, at some point, we're going to have to make a decision on Nick Robertson. Sure, come on in, sign a contract, let's get going.
Right.
But the Leafs aren't hurting for forwards. And Brisson and Robertson, his camp, they see that. And I get where they're coming from. You suggest they come to camp, be good soldiers, be good people, and compete. But compete for what?
Well,
right?
I mean, they're not hurting for forwards. You're right. Up the middle, they're strong. On the right side, they're strong.
Right.
But on the left side, right now, your top two left wingers are going into training camp depth-wise. Your top two left wingers are Matthew Nyes and Bobby McMahon.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not strong. Now, there's, again, in the chat, there have been people mentioning Max Pacioretty as a potential. Now, Max Pacioretty came back from a double Achilles injury. I mean, it was the same Achilles 2 years in a row. Came back, played the second half of last year with Washington, played in the playoffs, scored 4 goals. Is it possible at 35 he bounces back if he put him in a top 6? I don't know if you can put him in a top 6 role. I don't know at 35 he can keep up with the guys like Matthews.
So would he be able to do what Craig Berube is expecting of players who suit up for the Maple Leafs in 2014?
He's a bigger body player,
Right, okay.
and he's been able to. He's in the past been a more defensively responsible than a guy like Robertson. So yeah, but I mean, I don't know whether that is. That is a fix. But I mean, right now, you're talking, even if Easton Cowan has a great training camp, even if Robertson comes in and wins a job, you're talking about now Robertson, Nyes, maybe McMahon, Connor Dewar. It's not a strong left side. That's where the loss of Bertuzzi hurts. Domi could slot in as a third line center.
Yeah.
Or
isn't that where the Leafs want him to play, center?
Well, I mean, I think his best success last year was playing on the right side with Matthews. They right now you have Marner and Nylander, and they have to play in the top 6, and Domi can't play the right side or can't play the left side. I mean, Nylander for a few games played the left side. I don't think they like that. And then, there's the name that we forgot to mention, folks, and not William, but Alex, because they signed Alex Nylander to an AHL contract after scoring, I think it was like 11 goals since the trade deadline with Columbus. Now, he was playing top line minutes, so he's not going to get that opportunity. But everybody's piecing together. If he has a good training camp and they don't want to promote Easton Cowan, then they can sign Alex Nylander to an NHL deal. And then you've got the Nylander brothers playing with Matthews, or the Nylander brothers playing with Tavares. They'll put the brothers together. So, I mean, is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? No. But we'll see. I mean,
I'm up for a bit of a carousel on the left side until someone steps up or a few players step up to earn the gig. Just like the Marner situation, Brad Treliving's hands are tied, or he has to essentially wait. When you look at the Nick Robertson growing fiasco, really not up to Brad Treliving, really. It's not. I mean, he just has to go about his business and continue to operate the team. And if Nick Robertson wants to put on his big boy pants and show up to camp and sign a contract and go to work like a professional, then, Treliving will have some options as Robertson's play dictates to him what might be next. And at the end of the day, maybe he does earn a spot. I mean, there's a lot to accomplish here, and it's with or without Nick Robertson. This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario. OakRidgeFord.com, Ford employee pricing for September. Want to thank Dustin and Ian. We have an OG and a convert who, of the last 20 or so deals that I've done, were a part of it. One for a Broncos Fort, one for an F-150. Thank you so much to all of the OGs and converts who support me on the ground. Don't forget to support Uncle Mike with all of the stuff that he does. Mr. Augello, real quick before we get into Craig Berube, what else do you do? Like, you're writing for all kinds of publications. You're covering teams that we may not collectively like, but they do help you pay the bills. So just go over, besides the Leafs Convo, what else you're involved with.
Well, I've been with HockeyBuzz.com for 15 years covering the Leafs. And in the last year or so, I've taken on covering the Buffalo Sabres, the hometown Sabres, for the Hockey News. Yeah, and it's funny because somebody in the chat says I need to do a Sabres only podcast. I can't do it by myself. I would need to find somebody to sort of bounce off like
Sabres Convo.
Yeah, Sabres.
God.
Yeah, I actually did an appearance on GR in July after the Ryan McLeod trade. So yeah, I mean that I'm covering a lot more Sabres games at the arena. My footprint in terms of the Leafs being able to go to Scotiabank is a lot less, but I'm still really tied in with what the club is doing.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's all hockey all the time with me. And during the summers, it's I'm a baseball fan. I went to Yankee Stadium a couple last weekend to see them beat the Cardinals. Have not been to the new updated Rogers Center. I'd like to get up there before the end of the season, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to.
The field is amazing. The concourse is shit, like it's always been. It's just that big concrete structure, huge space to play, but they weren't really thinking about amenities back then. For me, the best Major League Stadium you can go to for a place that is breathable and lots of area to roam, and you can get a hot dog or a beer and a lickety split. That's Comerica Park. But
yeah,
I digress. Are you the Irv Weinstein of hockey podcast?
Oh God, no! Please, no. I'll tell you a quick story. Irv Weinstein worked for Channel 7, and Channel 7, their gimmick and everybody in the Toronto area knows this. If there was a fire in the Western New York area, they would lead with the fire.
Yeah,
it's like they'd have sirens. Oh, there's a fire in Cheektowaga, or fire in Lackawanna, and Irv Weinstein came in to be a speaker when I was in college at Buffalo State, and everybody was just asking him, like, really, so what's it like to be on TV type questions. Right. And I says, of course, me being me, I said, why does your station have the reputation of being the National Enquirer of Buffalo TV?
Oh my God.
And he was not too happy, and my professor was not too happy. I think I got a B instead of an A because of that question.
Well, that was setting off a whole series of real terse and tepid and acrid questions that you'd be asking in the future. Eddie Kilgore, there's another blast from the past.
Rick Azar, Van Miller.
Yeah, Carol Jason. Okay, that's enough. So Craig Berube, new head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, had success with the St. Louis Blues. Kind of was there when his success or predecessor was shot, and he just ended up winning a Stanley Cup. So, I mean, he's got a ring. Whether he, was the orchestrator of all of that success, we can debate that. But he's with the Maple Leafs now, and we're hoping that he can help to stimulate a little bit more from the team physically and with passion that we've seen in the last several years. But again, there's only so much you can extract out of players who just have no ability to exude those traits. When we look back on this season, how do you think Craig Berube will have affected it?
Well, I think there was a little bit of stagnation when it came to Sheldon Keefe. I mean, I think Sheldon Keefe is a good coach. I think he did the best that he could with the team that was provided to him. But after being there since, I think it was 2019 that he had replaced Babcock, I think they were looking for a new voice. Berube's new voice. He is somebody who gets under the skin, but he's somebody who tries to motivate. He's somebody who I think will get on players to do what they need to do to be a better team. Now he brings in a new coaching staff. I mean, I think the only member of the staff that stayed from Sheldon Keefe was Mike Van Ryn, who had worked with Berube in St. Louis. He brings in Mark Savard purportedly to run the power play. I think the fact that he's a new voice is something that they're looking for in terms of generating sort of a change of direction. But I know Berube back. He had success in St. Louis. He didn't have much success in Philadelphia in his first incarnation. But he's got a lot more talent than he had in Philadelphia. So I mean, I'm encouraged and I'm excited to see what he'll do. But do I know whether it'll be more successful than Sheldon Keefe? No. I mean, this team had 100+ points for most of the time that Sheldon Keefe was there. That's a tough act to follow. So
right.
Again, everything, and we say this thing over and over and over again, and you get almost to the point of being sick and tired of hearing about it. This season is meaningless until April. They need, the only thing they have to accomplish is getting in the tournament, being one of 8 teams. And then it's whether you can win in the playoffs. And if you don't win, then that's how many more years in a row that they haven't gotten past the first round, or they've got past the first round once.
Right. So, I mean, Craig Berube can rah-rah throughout the next 6-7 months. What does it matter? If he's not there to rah-rah and propel the team forward when it really counts. What else is new? So John Tortorella on one side, Paul Maurice on the other. Which way do you think Craig Berube ultimately trends?
Well, I think Maurice is a fiery coach too, but
I mean, again, a pariah, someone who alienates himself.
I don't think he's.
I'm asking, is Berube more of a Tortorella or more of a Maurice?
I think he's more Maurice. Tortorella, I think, burns out players after a couple years because he just gets on their case, and at a certain point, they're like, "Screw this." Maurice, I think his players, he gets on under the skin of some of his players, but they like him and they respect him. And I think Berube is close to that. I've heard that from players that played with him in St. Louis. I've heard from that from players and people who he was around in Philadelphia. So I don't think, and now you have to be concerned with his sort of gruff nature when it comes to the Toronto media. But, nobody is gruffer and more of a prick than Mike Babcock. So he'll seem like a picnic compared to him.
Yeah, I really don't care how he rubs the Toronto media. I don't think fans do either. And I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. The thing with the Toronto media, I mean, if you are the center of the hockey world and players come to this epicenter and you're there for coverage, you should be able to have a thick enough skin to deal with the personalities that you're going to encounter on a daily basis. So really, it's not up to the head coach to endear himself to some fucking podcast dude who just somehow got credentialed to show up to Scotiabank Arena. Like, just deal with it.
But there is an art, and the thing is, it's like, I think Sheldon Keefe was, he luckily had a couple years of training with the Marlies where he handled some media. I mean, the Marlies have more media attention than some NHL teams. So he handled that well. That was a good training ground, and he did a pretty decent job of not saying the wrong things. And you can say the wrong things, and it can snowball. Remember Randy Carlyle? Like, he was just okay. I mean, how much did that snowball?
But is Berube a foot in his mouth kind of guy? Have we seen this from him?
I don't think so. But remember, Philadelphia is a big market, but he was in St. Louis. What do they have? 4 beat reporters. So it's like, you don't know. So, I mean, that's a little bit of a concern, but I don't think really big. I just think that right now the concern is getting the best out of your players. And with this team, as we've seen for many years, it's getting the best out of your best players.
Right. Which hasn't really been a problem in the regular season from the Nylanders, from the Matthews, from the Marners, from the Tavareses. So I don't really know what's going to change other than these guys doing what they typically do under somebody new. It will be interesting if the team does slip a little bit and, can't find its footing, whether Berube gets on a player or two because he feels that they are are part of the reason why we're seeing more failure than success, and how that dynamic might shape up. But it's all in good faith, right? Whatever you need to do to kind of keep the train on the tracks. The thing about that, what we're trying to accomplish here right now is to get excited for the season to come and all of the trials and tribulations and the ups and downs and the different stages you go through in the same way we have over the last several seasons, because we just essentially know how this thing is supposed to play out. A great regular season with a dud in the playoffs. Other than new components and new players and a new head coach, a new captain, what the hell else is really going to change between now and April? I'm here for it, but I have a feeling the same result will be in place when all is said and done. Mike, last word to you. We got to get out of here.
Yeah, wash, rinse, repeat.
Right.
You bring back the same roster or most of the same roster, you're going to get the same result. Now, I think their defense is better. I mean, I think you're probably going to have, you're probably going to have Riley Tanev, Benoit McCabe, and Ekman Larson and Liljegren as your three defensive pairings. That's pretty good. It's not Boston Bruins good, or it's not Florida Panthers or Vegas good, but it's good. It's better. So, I mean, if the philosophy here is you put a better defense with the same group, then you could win series. Okay, fine. We'll see in April.
OG's Converse, like and subscribe. There's little buttons to do that. If you're with us for the first time, stick with us. Plenty of content to come. Season 7 officially starts today. The idea for Mike and I, 2 shows a week for sure on Sunday, and we're going to scatter more content about anywhere between the Wednesday and Thursday period. And hey, if you have any ideas on what you'd like to see from us, something that we've done in the past that you'd like to see unearthed, or maybe there's something brand new that you'd like us to try, you can get at us on social media. Mike is everywhere. I am everywhere. The community portion of the YouTube channel is pretty robust. There's lots of activity going on. And we get started today. Mr. Augello, week 1 of the NFL. You've got to be pretty pumped up.
Well, the Bills never play the first week well. They're playing a team that they should beat, but when you're playing a team that you should beat and you don't play well, that's a team that you could lose. They have a very tough schedule. I hope they beat Arizona, but we'll see. I mean, I'm looking at this. If they win 10 games and get into the playoffs, that's a victory because they made a lot of changes in the offseason. So we will see.
I absolutely love late summer, early fall because there's just so much going on. Things feel electric, and there's a lot of exciting things to come, and 2024 is no different. I hope everyone has a great week. It is so awesome to be back with you, and I can't wait for more Leafs content to come. For Mr. Augello, I'm Norm James. Welcome back, everybody. We'll see you soon. The Leafs Convo is out.